It's time for some new azaleas. Perfectamundo azaleas from Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs. These innovative new azaleas bloom longer and brighter than the rest, giving you months of flowers in spring and in fall. Take your pick from 10 different colors, shapes, and sizes. All have been trialed and tested to ensure your success and satisfaction. Look for Perfectamundo azaleas from Proven Winners Color Choice Shrubs in the distinctive white containers at your local garden center.
PMS, pregnancy, menopause. Each stage of womanhood has its unique challenges. That's why Highlands Naturals' new women's multivitamins are formulated with essential daily nutrients, plus targeted support for your life stage. Facing PMS? There's a Highlands multi for that. Navigating pregnancy and morning sickness? That too. In the throes of menopause, our formula is here to support you through hot flashes and skin changes. Gone are the days of juggling multiple supplements or guessing what you might need. With Highlands Naturals, it's one multivitamin with daily essential nutrients and science-backed ingredients to support you. An all-in-one wellness solution to lighten the load for women? Highlands Naturals is here for it. Find your multi at Amazon or Highlands.com. That's HYLANDS.com. Highlands Naturals. We're here for it.
If you really like this episode, please support our podcast by going to patreon.com/truecrimewives and get lots of great extras. On the Good Wife's Guide to True Crime, we discuss crimes that some may find disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. Hey folks, it's time to grab your glass of wine because the Good Wives, Fancy, Colleen, and Cristina, are about to serve up another true crime case.
Tonight's special guest is Cristina Schwarz, and she is a suicidologist expert, and we are very excited to have her tonight. We talk a lot about different types of suicide, what's going on in the world today, and how through this pandemic and what goes on after this pandemic, how suicide and mental health is going to be impacted. And we actually did this interview a while back, right when the pandemic was starting to happen. And so I think some of the things that we talk about tonight, actually we're seeing come true as a result of what we've been experiencing for the last several months.
Well, welcome, Cristina. We've got Cristina and Cristina.
Yes, exactly.
Spelled differently, though. So there you go.
They are spelled differently. So welcome, though. How are you? You doing okay? You staying safe and okay through all of this craziness?
Staying safe. I don't know about staying sane, but staying safe.
Yeah, I think
How about you?
I think it's taking everyone's sanity just a tiny bit. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
But we're all doing okay. So.
Yeah.
At least I've
been
been still healthy, except, well, I mean, Colleen's been battling stuff, but not COVID. So that's good. But.
Yeah, I've been lucky to be able to teach from home. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, we're a lot luckier than, I was just on the phone with friends in the UK, and they're so much more locked down than we are. So,
yeah,
I don't think Americans would take it.
Oh God, no. I don't think Americans are going to take it much longer, period. So I think I think there's going to be a lot of problems if it goes much longer. So sadly.
Right. And they're getting prepared for curfews and like more serious restrictions. And, you know, yeah, I don't think we would, it's not an American way.
Definitely not. Yeah. So, okay. Well, I mean, I'm glad you're good and things are well. So tell us a little bit about your original, like, professional background and how you kind of came to this whole thing of suicidology and maybe what suicidology kind of is. So.
Yeah. So, well, after undergrad, I applied to and went to dental school. My parents are both in the dental field, so it was kind of the natural step. My dad really wanted one of his kids to be a dentist. So,
Of course.
and I'm the young. So after my brothers did not become dentists, there was kind of no question I was going to be a dentist.
Yeah.
Yeah, dental school is absolute hell.
Oh, I feel that. I'm in nurse practitioner school.
Yeah, so it's just...
That's all I can say is
Yeah, exactly. It's just, it takes over your entire life, and it's not much fun. And the whole time I was going through it, everybody kept saying, basically, when you get out and you have your own practice, it'll all be worth it. You'll be making enough money, you'll enjoy it, you'll be your own boss, it'll be okay. And I got out, was hired into a wonderful private practice. Everyone was as nice as they could be. It was clean. Had amazing supplies. It was just an amazing practice. And I still hated it. So I loved working with the patients. I loved interacting with my patients. I just hated doing the dentistry.
And that's, I find quite common in all the medical field, is that people go in with this is what I want to do. I've always wanted to do this. And I see it a lot in nursing. So I teach nursing, and a lot of students will finish their nursing degree or get halfway through of their clinicals and then realize that they hate the job. They like working with patients, but they hate the actual job.
Right.
And then
exactly.
they end up going back to college for something else. And it's you just spent a crap ton of money and a lot of, tears and heartache and intense studying to not use your degree.
And important years of your life. I mean,
yes.
for me, making the decision to not give up, but, switch from dentistry to another career. I mean, that was a very heart-wrenching time of, self-discovery, self-questioning, because, I gave up a lot during those years. So to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine I don't know. I just think that wanting to put your hands in someone's mouth and do that, I don't know how anybody could enjoy it. It's nothing that I knock them or anything, because dentists are amazing. They do, great things. And I think that teeth, having your teeth be healthy, I think that's a gateway to keeping the rest of your body healthy, but I don't know. I just always thought it was who wants to do that?
Listen, oddly, it's very artistic. That's
right, sure.
Anybody who really is a hands-on kind of artist type person, I mean, it would be the perfect career for them. It's, very creative and very artistic. I just don't like working, in a tiny space with, tiny instruments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It gets complicated. So I did inpatient GI pediatric nursing. And so I spent my nights putting things up kids' butts. So that's not
fun either. That's definitely not glamorous.
I love working with the kids.
Right. No, you gotta love the kids. So Cristina, just so you know, we try to keep these really casual. We have questions and stuff, but there's no real format. So it's not you gotta wait for the next question or anything like that. We just like to talk and be casual about it and have a good time while talking about, some pretty serious things. So
okay. Sounds good.
Yeah, so if you don't feel like you can't laugh or have a good time, or you've got to answer, specifically a certain way, because we're just trying to have a good conversation here. So,
okay. Sounds good.
And as I say that, I'm going to go into a really hard question, though.
Well,
of course.
Hold on. What is suicidology?
Yeah, that's it. Let's get
okay.
Let's
so suicidology. Yeah, so suicidology is essentially the study of suicide and suicide prevention. Mm-hmm. And it's been around for a long time, but not just not popular, but there really aren't classes offered in it for clinical psychologists or for therapists. There are textbooks, there are some famous suicidologists, but it's just been a very small field. And there's only the first master's ever started, I think, a year or two ago in Australia. So it's just kind of like that people are realizing that how big of a problem suicide is becoming. And yeah.
I have a friend, I never get his last name right, but his first name is Rudy, and he does a lot of work about suicide advocacy and, speaking out on it and trying to help people. And I've always followed, him. And I think that each one of us here, I know myself, and I think Colleen as well, and I'm pretty sure Christina, we've all had our experiences with it, of feeling that hopelessness. And there's different reasons why everybody comes to that point in their life. I had mine a couple years ago. Colleen, I know when was your last one?
So I've attempted suicide 4 times. 3 times when I was, twice in middle school, once in high school, and then my last suicide attempt was in the spring of 2018. It's each reason each time was for mostly something different. The ones when I was a teenager were due to extreme bullying. And then the last one was actually due to my work issues. So I was working a weekend program, night shift every weekend, and I was full-time in my BSN and my MSN program, right after, I did not stop school. And so I was going to school Monday through Friday and then working night shift Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So I was not sleeping. And I was trying to change my work schedule to just be 2 of the nights or work, PMs, just something. And there was just, in a few months, right. Maybe. And they wouldn't, and it eventually got to the point where to even fall asleep, my Ambien wasn't working anymore. I was having to drink when I got home at 9 a.m. to be able to fall asleep. And it wasn't good. And eventually, I just laid out all of my pills, including all of my pain medicine that I was on for surgical stuff. So, I had a feeding tube during this time. And so I just laid all of my pills out. I laid a couple of alcoholic beverages out, and I just stared at them. And I called my now husband, and we were together then. We've been together since 8th grade. And I'm like, I need help. I don't want to do this, but I feel like I have to do this. And I eventually got into a outpatient intensive therapy, every day, multiple times a day, so they could prevent the inpatient stay. And I was out of work for a full month, but my doctor was like, you can't go back to working that same schedule. You can't. And they wrote orders, gave it to my work, and my boss refused to comply with it, said I had to work my schedule. And I went back for 2.5 months, and then I was like, I can't, no. And I ended up leaving. It was I wasn't going to go down that road again. So it's so frustrating that more people don't understand that kind of mindset that a person is in, and that people in healthcare who work in healthcare even don't take it as seriously as they should.
True. Right.
I think for me, I never had an actual suicide attempt because as a young teenager, I learned to use cutting as a way to, I guess, cope with it. And as I got older, I got out of it and learned other ways to cope with the anxiety and depression and everything. And I actually didn't cut for many, many years, but then I kind of relapsed a year ago after my mom passed. And it's basically just the process all over again of learning how to cope with things and not go back to that.
Yeah. And you see, and that's for me, cutting is one of the things that I don't understand. Like, I don't understand it. I don't know why that gives you release or why somebody would choose to do that. Like, I'm not being mean. I just really don't understand.
No, I get it. The only way I can explain it
Yeah.
is the physical pain. It forces you to focus on something other than the mental.
I see.
Exactly.
For me, that's what it is.
That's same for me.
Yeah. So when my first attempt was, a while back, way back. I was on 9 different types of medication for bipolar disorder, anxiety, depression. So I was very whacked out on all of that. Like, every time I went in to talk about any of those things and said something wasn't working, instead of asking me what wasn't working and finding a different solution, they just gave me something new and added it on. And so I was going through a separation from my husband, and now, I mean, we're back together now. We were separated for 4 years, and he was up for the weekend visiting, and we got into a knockdown, drag out fight, and that was kind of our MO for a long time, when we were both not, properly medicated and didn't know how to control a lot of the mental health issues that we have as a family, and so he was standing on one side of the bed and I was on the other, and I think we were making the bed, and he said something nasty to me, and I just literally, I lost it, and I sat down on the bed and I picked up one of my bottles of pills and I dumped them all out of my hand. And my husband, basically thinking that he could dare me out of it, like, screamed at me, he's like, go ahead, do it, blah, blah, blah. And so I looked at him, and it wasn't that I wanted that to happen. Like, I don't classify that necessarily as like a suicide attempt, because I know it is, like, I know it is, but for me, that wasn't the end goal. That wasn't what I wanted. I didn't want to die. I just wanted the whole world around me to stop. I wanted to stop being emotionally upset all the time. I wanted to stop being a failure as a mom, as a wife, as in my career. I wanted to stop being, I wanted to stop having arguments with my husband. I missed my mom, who I lost when I, 29. My mother was a juvenile diabetic who struggled her whole life. And at a month, 2 months before my birthday, a week before Thanksgiving, my mom passed away from a stroke that nobody would have seen coming. We thought that my mom was, very sick, but we thought we had years left still. And my mom passed away within a month of moving into my home where I could take care of her. And so I was just tired and done. And I was tired of the world, and I just wanted it all to stop. I didn't even think about dying. Like, I just wanted to pause. Like, I literally wanted to tap the pause button,
Which is one of the huge problems in our mental health system, is that there is no pause button.
No, there's no pause button for anything. Yeah, there's no pause button. And I felt like I was at a point where I was going to my counselor, and it was more stressful for me to go to the counselor than it was for me to actually, I would have panic attacks thinking about going to there, thinking about making an appointment, thinking about driving over there, and I wouldn't go. So I would, it was very erratic. And I didn't like the counselors that I had, because I was, at the time I was on state insurance, and in the area that I was in, now I had been on state insurance in Arizona. It was wonderful. The doctors, you got to choose whoever you wanted. It was wonderful. But here in Kentucky, they mandate where you're going. There's only so many choices, and most people don't take the insurance for mental health. So you go to the state run one, and it's overrun. And a lot of times it's scary, because there's people in there in the waiting room that are really, really mentally ill, and, sometimes it's scary. Sometimes they're screaming or crying or rocking, and for a person who has anxiety to sit in a room like that and watch that, it was a panic. And then I would get in there and I felt like I wasn't being listened to, like she didn't care, and there was one point in time I was describing a situation, which I absolutely knew was crazy. Like, it was a crazy situation. And when I finished explaining it to her, she looked at me and literally said, well, I think you accept things as normal that no one else would accept as normal. And I said, did you even hear what I said? Like, why would I be telling you this if I thought it was fucking normal. Like, and so I lost it. I literally had a complete meltdown right there. I was like, do you even have a family? Do you have husbands? Do you have children? Do you even know
Good
what I'm,
for
you know?
you.
And I was like, I can't even believe you said that. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard anyone say in my whole life. I'm like, you know what? We're done here. We're done here. And I just walked out. I slammed her door. You know, I walked out, and then the poor girl in the lobby, she's like, did you want to make it? I'm like, no, I don't want to fucking make another appointment. And I was like, I just lost it. I was like, that woman is a fucking quack. And I just walked out. And so then, you know, that was my beginning of like waking up and trying to figure out where I was going with this. And I slimy at that time, when I had the suicide attempt, I went into the hospital. When I came out of the hospital, like in the hospital, oh God, and we're going to ask you about that later, you know, because you've had your own experiences, but that hospital, like the second I was in there, I just wanted out. I was like, oh my God, I don't belong here. I'm not that crazy. I don't belong here. I'm not that crazy. I just wanted the world to stop for a minute. I'm really not that sick. Can I please go home? You know, and I was there for 72 hours and it did help to some extent, but I came out of there and I made the choice that I was coming off those medications. And, I started slowly doing it. I talked to my doctor and he was like, well, I don't want you to do that. And I said, I don't care what you want. I'm coming off these medicines. I can't function. And so he helped me. I said, you can either watch me die as taking myself off of them and possibly, you know, screwing myself up by doing it, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing, or you can help me. And so he did. And I came off of them. And then, you know, I did really well for many years. And then I had
Are you struggling to conceive? You have options, and at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group, we'll make sure you have the guidance and support you need. PREG is known for individualized fertility care that's unique to every patient. We take the time to provide a reassuring and empowering experience because we believe that you deserve nothing less. Let us help you on your journey to parenthood. Visit us at pregonline.com to learn more. Get the guidance and support you need at Piedmont Reproductive Endocrinology Group.
3 years now. 3 years now. Just 3 years now. Little over 3 years. I had my second attempt, and that was where I hit rock bottom. I have nerve damage, and I was having sciatica. I couldn't walk. I had passed out. I had like collapsed at my job, and so I wasn't working anymore, and I felt like a failure again. And my husband was, you know, he had to do everything, and my life, where I wanted to be in my life, was just not there. Nothing was happening right. And I remember I drove my daughter. So I live on a very, you know, remote street. It's just a little gravel road. I think there's only maybe 10 houses total on, you know, together from both sides. And I got in the car and I drove her up to the stops, you know, because the bus comes and gets her at the bottom of our road. And I was talking to her and I was crying and I hugged her, and I knew what I was planning on doing. And I looked at her and watched her get on the bus, thinking to myself, that's the last time I'm going to see my daughter. And I drove back up, and then I was standing in my driveway, and I don't know, I opened up Facebook for some reason, and there was someone on there that it hit me. And it she was a friend of mine from high school, and this is so silly because I always say, like, you know, I don't do this anymore. I'm not in MLM anymore, like just multi-level marketing, but multi-level marketing saved my life. Like, because it gave me some sort of purpose and it made me find direction. And it was a friend of mine who was doing an MLM, and I knew the background she came from and where she had worked herself to. And I kept thinking, what is she doing? You know, and I had asked her a million times what she was doing, you know, and she would tell me, oh, I'm doing this thing, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing that now. And so then I asked her this one last time, you know, and she told me, and for some reason I decided, okay, I'm going to do it. She goes, I'll pay for you to do it. She's like, you know, I know you've asked me so many times and I know you don't have the money to do it. I'm going to pay for you to do it. And we've parted ways, and I don't do that, you know, anymore. I was pretty successful at it. I did some coaching for a while. I did really well in the companies I was with, but it just wasn't the right path for me, you know? And I mean, I'm still believe in several of the products and different things, but I really knew it's like through that, I found my way into this because it gave me my confidence back. And I decided to go back to what my dream was, which was working in the entertainment industry, producing things, writing things. And I I really decided to really put forward the effort to really pursue it. Because before I was just kind of like, I went back to school for a little bit. I tried to do some things, but nothing really worked out. And then I decided, that's it, I'm really going to do this, and I found my way with this, and it's been a hell of a 3 years with this. But that day I knew I was going to. Like, I'm so thankful that something she said just touched me that day. And I ended up not going inside and attempting suicide that day. Even though I had planned it, I knew what I was doing. Nobody was home. They wouldn't, my husband would be the first one home. So I knew that he would find me first. And I had it all planned that day. And I can only say, by the grace of God and, what her word said, that I'm here today talking, because I know I would have been successful that time, because it was 12 hours before anybody would find me, so if I just took the pills and laid down, I would have not woke back up, so but I know that a lot of times you disclosed to us that you had some childhood trauma that kind of played into your life and your experiences. So can you share with our listeners what you've gone through and some of your own personal experiences?
Yeah. So let's see where to start.
I know I put a big question out there for you. Sorry.
I know. My major trauma occurred primarily when I was in dental school and the years following. I was mentally and physically, but the physical took a much greater toll, abused pretty much every night by my mother. And, looking back, I can put myself in her shoes. I can understand to a degree. I was miserable. I was crying all the time. And she, as a mother who loved me, couldn't handle it. And, her response was basically to beat it out of me, which does not work.
Yeah.
But yeah. And so consequently, between the stress of school, being beaten up every night, I had all these emotions. So then I started self-harming, mainly cutting. And of course had access to scalpels, which is a horrible thing for somebody now who's cutting. Yeah. Which then, escalated the situation more because, of course, my parents, it upset them to see me cutting or to see me, like that. So, but their response was more physical and verbal abuse. So yeah, that was the start. And I remember going to the dental school and telling them, I'm struggling. I'm not okay. Kind of like your story, Colleen. And they said, basically, if I needed psychiatric help, even if it was just one appointment a week, I would have to quit school. And, I'd been taught my whole life, you don't quit. You're not a quitter. You don't quit. Yeah. So I didn't, and just continued with the abuse and, the abuse of myself and the abuse that I was going through, hoping it would end when school was over, and it didn't end.
Right.
Yeah. So that's how my journey started, really.
And I think that happens so often is so many people they don't take you're serious when you're saying something like that, and most people, I think, have a conception of the fact that the people who commit suicide or are afflicted by it and make attemptions, are weak. They're the weak-minded people. They're the people that are, maybe just not strong enough and they can't make it through. But I've found the different. I've found different. Like every single person that I know that's ever had an attempt are the strong ones. They're the people that everybody looks to expect to just keep holding the fort, holding the line. And it's often, I always think about, there was something I said one time, a long time ago, was that, when you look to the people to be the rock, like, where do they look, and how,
Exactly.
and at what point in time do I get to say, okay, I'm sorry, I can't hold this burden anymore. And, you're that person for people. And like you said, you were taught that you succeed, I was too,
Right.
I was taught that same thing. And my mother, when I got pregnant with my first daughter, it was unexpected. I didn't know that I could even get pregnant. I have PCOS. I'd been told by doctors for years that I couldn't even have children without, extreme help, which is absolutely untrue. I have 3 children. One of them, one born on birth control, another born, I'm sorry, unless my husband just has the super sperm, I don't know. But, so I got pregnant with my first daughter. My mother, while she loves my kids, and she's very supportive, but at first it was disappointment in me that I was ruining my life, and that that this wasn't what we planned for you. This wasn't your path. You were doing this. You were making a career. You were, and my mom, she even, when she gave me the card for at my baby shower, it said in there, like, it was this card talking about how proud she was of me. And the same sentence, my mother saying how proud she was of me, but yet inside the card she said, I had hoped to give this to you upon graduation, but or for your first movie premiere, because I wanted to be an actress at that time. And I don't think she realized that basically negated the fact that she was telling me she was proud of me.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think she even knew. And my mother and I had a very tumultuous relationship. My mom was very sick, and the medicines she was on made her rather abusive growing up, but I know that my mother was also, on the same sentence, my mom was my biggest champion. My mother always fought for me. She always, did things and was always there as a supporter. But in the same way, I didn't feel supported, like,
it's the word but
it's
yes,
yes.
it negates everything that was just said. Like, I was told, oh, so proud of you for graduating, but you could have gotten a better grade in math. Like, what? That means
Right.
you're like, I don't take that proud anymore. That doesn't.
Right. And that wishy-washiness, I mean, psychologically, really messes up your internal value system. You don't quite know what to go with, and it creates a lot of problems psychologically.
It does. And for years, I'm a very strong, confident woman. Anybody who knows me will tell you I'm a survivor. That I survive everything. I don't know how you've been through what you've been through and you're still standing. My husband will tell you I'm the strongest woman that he's ever met. My kids think of me that way. And inside, to me, I think, but I fail at everything. What are you talking about? So it's that struggle, because I do come across that way, and I am a confident woman, but there is a massive struggle inside of me, of that confidence. Like, that confidence is I don't want to say put on, but it's definitely a mask for what I feel inside many times.
So you've had quite an experience with your own mental health challenges, where you've gone through a lot of unique experiences and come out quite strong on the other side. But can you tell us a little bit about what you actually did? If don't be afraid to share the actual details either.
Wait, are we talking to me or?
Yeah, your story.
You.
Yeah, your story.
You.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Story. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, sure. Well, one of the things I wanted to add in the beginning was that when I was being so violently abused, I would show up at school with bruises, black eyes, things like that. And nobody said anything, everyone knew. I know everyone knew, and nobody ever said anything. I would show up at the gym the same way. Nobody said anything. I'd go to, I went to a couple therapists like once or twice. They knew the whole story. They saw everything. Nobody said anything. So I think that like also put in my mind of like, this is going to be accepted. This is just how it is. When I graduated school and I started working and it didn't work out, I kind of fell down the rabbit hole even more, and my self-harm just grew to the point of, I was cutting arteries. So,
Jeez.
just to be able to see basically how much blood I could lose before I died. And unfortunately, because I had the medical knowledge, I could do it a lot easier than someone who didn't. So that went on for a couple of years. I eventually hurt myself so badly that I ended up in a hospital, which I have very strong thoughts about psychiatric hospitals and how horrible they really are and how useless they are.
Sure.
But I was convinced from there to go to a treatment center, which I did. And again, I have mixed feelings about that. I think that you get a feeling that you're not alone, and that's the benefit.
Right.
And if you're willing to follow the rules and pay the money, you can get better. But you have to be willing. You have to be to some degree healthy enough to benefit from it, or you're almost just used to make money by the center. That's my opinion.
Right.
When I got out of that treatment center, I was determined to move on with my life and, kind of not look back. I had been accepted into London School of Economics for a public health master's. So I kind of left everything behind, moved to London, did my due diligence, got a therapist and a psychiatrist in London, and started living my life. And it worked for about a month and a half. But trauma follows you. So
yes.
Around Thanksgiving, I attempted for the first time in London, and ended up being put into a psychiatric hospital there. And then following that attempt, I pretty much attempted maybe at least once a month, sometimes every other week, for the following probably 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and some, much more serious than others.
So I read some of the things that you've done. Could you share some of them if it's not too hard for you?
Yeah. So,
and if it gets too much for you, please let us know. Okay.
Yeah. No, not at all. I have kind of like a risk gene is what I call it. And my siblings have it too. They just, use it in other ways. People would go out, ride motorcycles or jump out of planes. And I have used it as a, I can do anything to myself and it doesn't, I don't know. I don't have a negative response to it. I guess I dissociate from myself and it doesn't even affect me. So, I started out self-harm wise with cutting. And then I moved on to burning myself. With either chemicals or fire or whatever really I could get my hands on. And then I overdosed quite a bit, although I think none of those, most of those I realized probably wouldn't work. But I swallowed over 20 razor blades at one time. That was one of my, more unique methods when I had run out. And
why was that? Did you think it was going to cut
internally?
Internally.
Yeah. I was kind of at the point where I knew I wasn't supposed to be cutting. I knew I wasn't supposed to be burning myself. I knew I wasn't supposed to be overdosing.
Right.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere. This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
But I still had that urge and that desire, and
Right.
it was kind of a secret way that I could fulfill the urge and the desire and have nobody know, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, so that was pretty much how I spent my time in London, which, you know, on the bright side, I loved the hospital I was in. I loved the other patients. When you talked, Fancy, about going to the psychologist and like seeing the extremely ill people, like for me, that's that's my passion. You know, I've lived with those people for so long, so many months, so many years, that I love interacting with them. I love hearing their stories. I love hearing their coping techniques, you know, all of that.
Right.
Yeah. So eventually, let's see, I went from London to Israel. I tried to get back on my feet and start working as a paramedic. But I knew nobody in Israel. So, you know, that flopped after a few months because I just couldn't handle it mentally. Ended up in a psych hospital in Israel, which that was absolute hell. And then came back to the US and went from place to place to try to get treatment, which is when I really kind of figured out that, especially in the US, our view of suicide and view of self-harm is to the point where you really can't even get good treatment. Like the best treatment centers are afraid to treat you. They're afraid to accept you. And same with therapists. So I eventually had electroconvulsive shock therapy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that was an interesting experience.
Wasn't even aware they still used that therapy. Good Lord.
Yeah, so they do it for the most serious cases. And at that time I was, you know, attempting suicide every other week.
Right.
So I participated in that. They basically, you go in every other day for about a month. They put you to sleep, shock you, and then wake you up again. You have to have a caretaker. It's a very, you know, you don't know where you are. You don't know what's happening. Yeah.
And did you choose that therapy, or was that something that was just done?
I chose it like a last resort. I was, you know, I didn't want to be suicidal all the time. You know, it's a horrible feeling.
No, it is. We have a friend who has worked with us that has been like that, and it's draining on us. It's draining on her. We understand. Yeah.
Exactly. It's draining on everybody around you. It's draining on you. And yeah, when somebody says, you know, why don't you try this? You know, I would try anything, whatever, you know, to make myself better.
And how did that, so what was the reason and the benefit from that, and how did it work for you? Like,
so I don't know that they know exactly how it works. One of the things that it does is it erases your memory, which has its pros and its cons. So the pros, of course, is a lot of the traumatic experiences get dulled, and you kind of have more distance from them. So that really helped me. Losing my good memories, though, has been very sad. And, you know, I've been working very hard to recover those. But for me, unfortunately, I mean, I did it to myself. Before I had started the electroconvulsive therapy, I had self-harmed. And so at a point during it, I got septicemia, a blood infection. And then basically we couldn't get rid of it. It kept coming back.
Oh, jeez.
So after a month of electroconvulsive shock therapy, they basically refused to treat me anymore because every time they would do the anesthesia, it would move the bacteria from wherever it had been hiding in my body. I'd get really sick again. Yeah, so it was an experience, but it's not something I'm still experiencing.
Is it something that you would support for someone else? I mean, is it something that you would say to somebody who is like that, that's contemplating it every single day and has been through extreme trauma? Is it a treatment that you would support and recommend?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
So yeah, it has its downsides, but the upsides are much larger than the downsides. Yeah, as a clinician, and my therapist at the time was a psychologist who had never had a client patient go through it, and she learned a lot, and she would refer or recommend it to patients. Yes, 100%. It can completely change, and especially if you're able to keep up with maintenance wise. Technically, you're supposed to, taper off slowly and then continue to do it once a month. And
right.
Yeah.
But that wasn't an option for you, obviously.
Exactly.
I mean, when you think about it, you think about like, I mean, we've all seen horror stories of it, and like seen pictures of it. And the latest one that I can think of that I saw was like them using it as a thing in American Horror Story when they did the one that was Asylum, and thinking about how horrible and painful and how it was used as a, means of controlling patients instead of helping them. And so it's interesting to hear someone speak positively about this, because it's such an extreme thing.
A lot of things have changed.
Sure.
A lot of things have changed.
No, I get it. And it's not the same thing, but I'm saying in people's minds, I'm sure I want them to know what you're describing, because I'm sure a lot of people think of, electrical shock therapy, and they think that's the image that comes up in their mind, not what you're describing here. This is different. And I honestly, I saw that in your story and I was like, oh my, like, was that something she was forced to do, or, it's interesting to hear what you've gone through with it. And I'm glad that, you found some peace with that. That is amazing, and it definitely changes my thought process on it, So.
Yeah, 100%. The only downside, like I said, is losing your good memories.
Now, did you lose, like, when you say that, what do you mean? Like, how much percentage of memory loss have you experienced? Like, are you just struggling to remember details, or like, kind of be a little more specific about that? Can you?
Yeah. So right after or during, pretty much everything that happened that month, like the people I interacted with, I don't remember at all. I still have, so I remember the important people in my life, my, good friends, the people I see regularly, but I still have times when I'm at the gym and somebody comes up to me and starts talking, or I got a LinkedIn message from someone, Cristina, it's so good to see your face. Like, we need to talk. And I had to write back and say, like, I'm really sorry. I went through this procedure and I have no idea who you are. Feel free to, tell me. I'd love to know. But, and that's I think the biggest difficulty. It's kind of like you're sacrificing you're sacrificing your memory for the sake of your future.
Yes.
It doesn't affect your intelligence. It doesn't affect your ability to learn. It doesn't affect, like, really way back memories.
Okay. Right.
But yeah, for the time, it took away quite a bit of the year before for me. The little things, not the big things, but the little things, the day to day. And then it took away that month, and the following few months are still fuzzy. So, but they put you to sleep. You don't feel anything. You're not in pain after. So I would.
And then what's the process afterwards to help? Is there a process to help you regain those? Like you said, you're regaining memories. So is there a process that you go through to try and help you regain that?
No, that's the thing. They don't understand it enough, and not everyone loses memories. And there is really no process. Yeah.
From being in like that side of the like medical field, and I've learned that before, during, and after care of doing that to a patient, and it's for learning it, and I've taken several mental health courses in my degrees, and it's very much they don't know. And after the exposure of in the 60s and 70s and even 80s of what mental health institutions were doing in the U.S. and really across the world, but specifically the U.S., like Willowbrook, it really kind of limited the amount of experimental things they can do to patients anymore. Because they need consent, they need informed consent, and due to the stigma of mental health issues, not enough people do participate in that or even get offered that kind of help and treatment. And so they're still performing things that they don't understand why or how it works. They know it works. I have seen the instances where they do perform a lobotomy still.
Yeah.
That's the most severe thing you can do to somebody. And I mean, they take a piece of your brain out in hopes that they're removing the piece of brain that has that memory, or even removing the entire entire lobe of that, like the prefrontal cortex or stuff like that. So it's very an unknown in mental health. Even with new medications that come out on the market, they know it can increase dopa or it increases serotonin, but everybody's levels are different. And like, I was being treated for depression and anxiety, but just this last year we figured out I actually have bipolar depression. And so then getting on the med I'm on now, I'm still on one of the other meds, but it's been a complete night and day difference.
Yeah.
And it takes so many trials and errors. And what I found very interesting learning is that, when this new med is started, that it can take 6 to 10 weeks before a patient notices a severe difference. And during that time, they do feel a burst of energy, which can increase the likelihood of causing suicide. So like in the commercials for drugs, which I hate that they do that, because I don't think patients really should be like, I want that med.
Right. Oh no, I think that's terrible. I think it's terrible.
They're like, this drug is for depression and anxiety. Talk to your provider. Side effects may include suicide in people under the age of 17 and increased likelihood. And it's like, but you're going to confuse people even more. You just said it was for depression, and now you're saying it's going to cause suicide.
Right. Like, yeah. I'm like, hello, that's not, I'm trying to avoid that. Like, that's kind of where I'm trying to avoid. So, thinking about suicide and what we've talked about, like, there's been a bunch of cases that have come about that are kind of iffy in the true crime world, of these suicides that are maybe led to either by coercion or bullying. I know that we're talking to one of your friends, this week, Julie, whose husband actually, tried to make tried to kill her and make it look like suicide.
Right.
But I'm thinking, have you checked out those cases, like maybe the Conrad Roy case or the Cherokee Harriman case? We just talked with them, the young lady who was bullied, and basically she, went into the park, plunged a knife in her stomach and died. What is your take on that? Thinking about maybe the forced suicide or the ramifications of bullying leading to suicide.
Yeah, I mean, the only way I can relate really is I've been asked by my parents multiple times to kill myself, and many of my attempts were basically because I was begged. My last attempt was in December. I jumped off a cliff onto rocks, and at that time my dad had begged me to go jump off a cliff. And I know that with, I don't remember which case it was, but recently there was a case where somebody killed themselves and they had evidence text-wise.
That's the Conrad Roy Michelle Carter case that I was just talking about. Yes.
Right. So
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes.
think that evidence is very necessary, because I've called police before and said, this is happening. What can I do? And they have always said, unless you have bruises on your body, you can show us, or I don't even know if the text messages would be enough. I mean, they were very clear that they needed, to be able to see that I was being physically hurt before they would do anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the only reason that we saw that in the case with Conrad Roy and Michelle Carter was because they were minors. I think that was the only reason that became a case that went to court, and they really thought about it, because I don't think it would have stuck if it had been an adult. They would have just been like, oh, well, he could have made his own choice. He didn't have to listen to her. He didn't, she wasn't in the car with him. She wasn't forcing him. She didn't make him go out and buy the generator. She didn't make him put the tube in there, all the different things, like it was because they were teens, but like you're saying, I mean, it goes well beyond that. We experienced this last year, an extreme case of bullying due to a case we were working on. And I mean, it was horrific. It was every day. It was all day, every day on the internet, all the time. And
thousands of people
that we were, just totally constantly doing things. They tried to break up my marriage. They tried to ruin my career. It was crazy. And I mean, basically people just looked at it as like, well, just get over it. Why don't you just ignore her? I'm like, do you understand? It doesn't happen. It's not happening. It's like, well, you don't have to give her any. I'm like, but you don't understand what she's doing. Do you see? She's calling people that are my contacts in my world, in my business world, and trying to say things to them. Like, what do you mean I should just ignore it? I can't ignore that. Like, and if I ignore her completely, I don't know what the hell she's doing, so then I don't know what she's trying to do to sabotage me today, so and it was very hard. I think there was a lot of touch and go moments for many of us on our team, and I thank these two women for getting me through it, because and there were others. There were other people that helped to get me through. My family did, but I can honestly say, without the two lovely ladies that we have on here today, I don't know that I would have made it all the way through.
But that's one of the huge problems with our system.
Yes.
Is that, children are protected.
Yeah.
Elderly are protected.
Mm-hmm.
Adults are not protected at all.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
and I mean, my children have experienced the bullying, and many of them I have 3 daughters, and
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Two of them have talked to me about thinking about suicide. You know, my third daughter, I think she has those experiences, but she doesn't talk about them. But two of them have talked to me about it, you know, and it was extensive bullying, you know, and so it's not to minimize any of that, because I feel for every child that's ever bullied and considers suicide from it, you know. And I do think that the Conrad Roy case was so interesting. I mean, I'm on the fence. Like, it is kind of, well, could he have made it? Was he making his own choices? Obviously, he had attempted to commit suicide twice before Michelle came on the scene. So, you know, so it did she really convince him, or was he just already ready and she just resigned herself to that? Because there are text messages where for about a year before she finally started to tell him to do it, she was trying to say, I want to get you help. How can I help? What, I'm going to call your parents. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then she basically explained it as it was a constant everyday thing from him. And
Right.
that it broke her down into the fact of that she decided the only way to help him was to help him actually leave the earth, you know? And I don't know. Is that murder? Is that suicide? Is that what is that? You know, like, nobody's ever seen anything like that before.
Because nobody talks about it.
Because nobody talks about it.
Yes.
This is the big problem. Suicide is such a taboo subject still. It's not taught anywhere, talked about anywhere. There's no, I mean, there's no Suicide Anonymous groups.
No.
There's no mental health teaching in schools. There's so much that could be done.
Right, I know. Yeah, you can teach children about putting a condom on a banana, but you're not going to teach them how to be mentally healthy. Like,
right.
Well, and I think the issue is, so I'm the youngest one here. I'm 25. And what I experienced as a teenager was that I was a kid. I transferred I was in a country area living, and I moved into a big city, and I started going to middle school with this pretty much all super glamorous, you know, people who shop at the mall, whereas my clothes were bought at Walmart. And my mom had left when I was 3, so I didn't know how to take care of like my curly hair. Her hair was frizzy. Everybody else was like super polished. And so I got bullied a lot for my physical attributes. And then they started picking about my mental attributes. And I don't think my dad knew how to handle that, because I had told him I want to kill myself. And then he's like, no, you don't. I said, Dad, I'm cutting. He's like, no, you're not. And I think that was his own like deflection, not wanting to deal with my own.
Yeah, that was my mother's response
not handling it. And then like in high school, the other adults in the system really failed me, because I was interviewed for a news segment, and my interview was very cut pasted to, and it came across like I said something that I didn't. But they put that on the news. And then the next day I was beaten up at school. Some of the older kids had made T-shirts about what I said. And the principal was like, well, you shouldn't have talked to the news. There's nothing we can do.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm getting beaten up in the hallway. I'm like, I need help. And they're like, you know, this is a lesson. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah, you gotta be
well,
kidding
it's not
me.
just that. It's what about the kids who are doing it? You know, how did they learn that? Why is it still happening? Why isn't, you know, because I think that these issues of suicidality, I think the majority of people on earth think about suicide at some point in their life.
Yes, I agree. I agree with that. I think every single person has that thought process at some point.
And I look at kids who are the bullies and I wonder, you know, there's something psychologically going on there. Are they being bullied at home? Have they been, you know, what is it that, you know, has taught them to be bullies? And all of that could so easily be addressed in schools.
Yes.
And I don't know why it's not, but
and I think that if that would be the approach, I think if we started younger and we did talk about it and we did validate their feelings, then I think maybe we would see a decline in suicide. I think maybe it would prepare them more as adults to know that those feelings are normal feelings and that they happen to everybody, and that there are ways to get help and there are ways to work through it, and it's not to be quiet about it, it's to get help and to
I know exactly why it's not taught younger. It's the same reason that they don't want to teach sex ed and proper to give out free condoms in high school.
No, it's the ostrich theory. It's like bury your head in the sand and pretend it's not going to happen. Like, okay,
I'll teach my kid safe sex and I'll have that conversation with my kid. I don't want you telling them, about it, but then they don't tell them about it. And a lot of times the kids who aren't being told about it, they end up getting pregnant or having issues in that department. And it's the same reason. They're like, well, I don't want you to mentally scar my child by talking about suicide. And it's like, that's actually the opposite of what would happen.
Yeah. So it's interesting because I have quite a few nieces and nephews, and I've been very open with the older ones. They don't ask questions. They kind of accept it. The little ones ask me about my scars. And I kind of brush it off because I think they're too young to, discuss it with yet. But one of the interesting things is that in the UK, they have a mental health program for schools called .B, and it is primarily like a mindfulness-based program. But the other thing that's starting, where are they located? I think they're up in Oregon. They're trying to start teaching DBT in schools. So DBT is dialectical behavior therapy. So I understand that parents might be afraid of just the word therapy, but DBT in itself doesn't talk about, like, part of the therapy is you don't talk about suicide, you don't talk about cutting, you don't, you call them something different, like negative coping mechanisms. Which I have an issue with, when you're actually trying to get therapy and you need to actually discuss things. But for kids, I think it'd be a fantastic way to learn, these are emotions, these are normal feelings.
Yeah.
Here's a bunch of positive coping mechanisms,
Yeah, I think I remember back, like, as a teen, and now I'm dating myself here if anybody knows what I'm talking about, because I don't even know the name of the movie that I actually watched, but it was a movie that I watched as a teenager, and it was a couple, these two teen kids who decided to kill themselves together, kind of like a Romeo and Juliet thing, but they did it like they locked themselves in a garage in a car, and they filled the garage.
Oh, virgin suicides.
I don't think so.
Sort of.
Way before that. Way before that.
Okay, I love the virgin suicides.
No, I know what you're talking about, but this is not that. This was a little couple, and it was a boy and a girl, and I don't remember all the details. I just remember that one thing, and it's and I remember sitting and watching that and thinking, I could do that, as a teen, and thankfully I didn't. But I think that if I had a more positive way of thinking about that, or of somebody else saying to me that they thought that way or they felt like that, because I feel like with suicide and suicidal thoughts, you feel like you're the only one,
Right.
And our friend that is going through this right now, that is she's been in and out of treatment, and she's been in and out, and it is, like I said, it's a daily struggle for her. And one of the biggest things is trying to convince her that she's worthy to be here.
Right.
And it's hard for me because I get so frustrated because I try to talk to her and I try to tell her she's worthy, and she's not hearing me. Like, she doesn't hear it. And it's very sad because she's an amazing person, and I can see all the good qualities. I can see, how special she is and how great and intelligent and what a good mom she is and all these different things. And she can't see it. She just literally can't see it. I'm not worthy. I'm terrible at this. I'm terrible at that. And it's hard, and it's very hard to get a person like that through, like you're saying, you were having it every single day. I think most people don't even realize that is, they think of maybe suicidal thoughts as a fleeting thing, like you have them and they go and they come back, or whatever, but not an everyday occurrence. And now I think about in what we're dealing with right now with this pandemic and everybody being shut in, whether it's shut in and they're having anxiety because of the unknown, or because they're in a situation where they're home with somebody who might be abusive and that puts them home with them more often. What do you think through this pandemic? I mean, I'm very concerned that we're not taking that into consideration of, yes, we're trying to save lives, but we're also, is that destroying mental health, for many, many, many people?
100%, 100%. And I worry that the suicide numbers this year are going to be way above the COVID-19
Me too.
Numbers.
Me too.
I can say 100%, if I was still in London in my flat by myself, I would be dead. There's no question.
Absolutely.
I use people as a distraction. I use exercise as a distraction. And it's interesting because I have the majority of my friends are suicidal. I've met in hospitals, and I am in constant contact with them. Everyone is struggling. Everyone is, their mental health is going down.
Yep.
A lot of them can't see their therapist anymore.
Conspiracy theory begins to take over in some ways. Yep, I know.
Well, we just saw, it came out in the news today in Wisconsin, that's where I am, that a couple, I think they murdered all of their children because they thought they were going to die from coronavirus anyway.
Right.
Oh, and see, that's what I've been trying to talk about. Like, so I have a difference of opinion than Christina and Colleen. They're very concerned, and they really feel like we should continue, flattening the curve and staying in and all these things. And I am the person who's talking out and saying our rights are being taken away. And, but I'm not doing like, I don't believe in all the conspiracy things of I'm not sitting out here going, oh, 5G is the problem. No, I'm not doing all of that. Like, I'm not that person, but I'm definitely my concern. I am more concerned about the mental health of our country and what this is doing to us, because you're going to now have the unemployment rate is skyrocketing, and I am so concerned about that, because losing your job is one of the number one traumas in a person's life. Losing a job is one of the number one traumas. And so that is concerning for me. And like I said, putting people that are in situations that are maybe unhealthy, like you just said, being home alone. I have a friend that's exactly what she said. She goes, I feel like I'm in solitary confinement. Right. I can't go anywhere. I can't do anything. And she's in California where they're finding people for driving somewhere, so she's very concerned, and she can't even go see her parents who are, she's a little girl that I used to babysit. Now she's a full grown adult, and her parents are older than me, but not terribly that much older than me. I mean, they're maybe, 10 years older than me. So they're not totally old, but her, they do have some health issues she's worried about. She can't see them. She can't do anything. She can't see her friends. She can't do anything. Like, she's stuck. And I just worry. And like you said, I know the ramifications, and I know what this disease can cause. But then again, I'm looking at it going, but did you look at the suicide numbers all these years? You weren't concerned about that. Are you looking at other numbers for other things? You're not looking at those things and even considering them at all. And I worry about, not just the economics of this, but the mental health of this. Like, I'm very scared that these numbers are going to be insane numbers for suicide and homicides even, coming from this. I think crime is going to rise if we keep this up much longer.
To hear the rest of our interview with Cristina, please join our Patreon member club at patreon.com/truecrimewives, or you can do our yearly subscription at madgingerentertainment.com.
We absolutely love hearing from our listeners, and we'd like to invite you to send us a question for us to answer or a case you'd like us to cover. You can drop us an email at goodwivesdish@gmail.com, and we might feature it in one of our next episodes and give you a shout out. Right now, we are also hosting our #LoveWins Scholarship Fund. If you're a college-age student who would like to enter, send us a 30-second video telling us about how you lead with love. Email your entry to us with a little bio about yourself and your educational goals. And if you'd like to learn more about our #LoveWins campaign for peace, merchandise, or donation details, go check out our informational video on youtube.com/murderbydesign. We look forward to hearing from you.
Along with our Love Wins campaign, we are also launching an organization that is tentatively called the Gale Force. The term Gale Force is used to describe a very strong, fierce wind. The acronym GALE stands for Good Apples of Law Enforcement. Usually, when we hear about any incident involving wrongdoing by a member of law enforcement, they're generally referred to as bad apples, which leaves people asking, where are all the good apples? We know they exist, but we don't get to hear from them enough. That's where the Gale Force comes into play. The Gale Force would be a safe space for those good apples to unify and take action against the bad apples. We believe that good outnumbers bad in all aspects of life, and those numbers are where that Gale Force of fierceness and strength come from. When good unifies, bad will always lose. There are issues in the law enforcement profession that need to be rectified, and we believe that the best way to resolve them starts from within. There's what we call the blue wall of silence, which is an informal rule among police officers not to report on a colleague's misconducts or crimes. It's time to tear that wall down. Officers are often punished if they break that wall of silence. An example of this is Officer Carriel Horn, who we've been hearing a lot about recently. Back in November 2006, she stopped another officer from putting a suspect in a chokehold. She was fired after 19 years on the job and lost her pension because she intervened. Also, the stigma that goes along with members of law enforcement seeking out mental health care needs to end. Studies have shown that members of law enforcement are less willing to seek care because of embarrassment and shame. Keep in mind, this is a high-stress profession with a higher suicide risk than other professions. There have also been some studies that indicate that if an officer receives support from their unit, they're much more likely to seek help when it's needed. We believe the good members of law enforcement far outweigh the bad, but we also believe that the system needs to be changed to give them a louder voice without fear of retribution or desertion by their colleagues or superiors. We hope the Gale Force can be a first step in giving these law enforcement officers from all over the country support and a way to come together and say, we will not stand by and allow anyone to tarnish the profession that we have dedicated ourselves to. We're going to clean the barrel, one bad apple at a time.
Thanks so much for tuning in and dishing true crime with the Good Wives.
Don't forget to join our Patreon member club to get the inside documents and pictures from the case, bonus mini podcast episodes, live YouTube discussion, and an exclusive invitation to our discussion group on Facebook, and get some amazing Good Wives merch.
Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at True Crime Wives. And for more inside information, check us out on YouTube at Murder by Design, where we're currently talking about a few different true crime cases, from bullying murders to serial killers. We dish it all.
Have a good one from the Good Wives, serving up true crime, one dish at a time.
With the Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
This is your captain speaking. We've got clear runway and the weather's fine, but we're just going to circle up here a while and get lucky. No, nothing like that. It's just these cash prizes add up quick. So I suggest you sit back, keep your tray table upright, and start getting lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus terms and conditions apply. See website for details.